Welcome to the S.J. Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Thank you for joining the S.J. Child Show today. I am excited to get into this conversation. You know, our community is made up of such amazing people, and we love to share their stories, let them come on and share their own stories. And that's the best part, is really being able to hear and value and just be there for my guests. So I'm so excited to have you today, Courtney. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sarah. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, I'm interested to, find out more about you, dive deep into how we can better support you as the audience and learn about more about what we're going to talk about today. So let's get a short introduction about yourself and kind of what brings you here.
Okay. So my name is Courtney Copeland. I am a trauma counselor. I'm also a business and life coach. And I have a nephew who is on the spectrum. And so I've learned a lot about working with him and the best ways to make sure he understands what I hear and say and how he can navigate this world better.
Yeah.
So that totally kind of working all of those things together is kind of what brought me here.
Isn't that amazing too, that you can have education and all of these other skills and things and go in, and then you meet someone or have a client or know someone who you completely are like, nope, none of the books fit this. Like, I'm going to completely have to reinvent the language and all of the things. I know that's what happened with our family. It felt like we reinvented everything. I kind of joked a few times that it was like, we live in a house with round walls, not corners. They're all rounded. Everything's not the same here that it's supposed to be. And, it just gives you such grace and understanding for humanity, I think, in general, and just really what everyone is going through when you can be a part of something that is more complex than you. You have to be more patient and be more, give more understanding. Tell us about how that kind of process started for you, what that looked like.
In terms of working with my nephew?
Yeah, and like making the kind of changing how he was understanding things versus how you were helping him to better understand.
Gotcha. Okay. So he's what was formerly called, he has Asperger's.
Yeah.
So it's all different now with the DSM-5. So things have changed.
Yeah.
But he always was quite sensitive. He always had issues with noises and tactile things. And so we've kind of noticed that when he was younger. And as I was going through my master's program, my brother and my sister-in-law were looking to me, and I'm like, I got nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we'll work on this together. But it's recognizing, just kind of watching him, because he, just like all of us, we're conditioned in certain ways, right? So families tend to have certain expectations depending on where you live and your culture and stuff like that. So families tend to have certain expectations where, nope, we're going out. You just got to deal with it. We're going to the store. You just got to deal with it. We're going to this restaurant that has only metal roofs and a hardwood floor, and you just deal with it. And, you could just kind of see him withdraw. And I was like, well, maybe we should get some headphones or earplugs or something just to kind of diminish that noise. And unfortunately, there was some times where we didn't have those things. So I just started keeping the little foamy earplugs in my bag. So anytime he was with me. And then I think my sister-in-law went a little bit overboard trying to protect him too much. So it went from, all right, just suck it up, to, oh no, he has this diagnosis now, and now we have to stop everything. Like, he's in a bubble. And I'm like, no, we need to have something in between. Where he can learn to navigate this life productively without having too much of kid gloves on, but also being able to grow into an adult,
Yeah.
which he's 20 now. So he's on his way. But
great.
realizing that his just a little bit different, it doesn't make it bad. It's just different, and you have to learn to navigate things differently.
Isn't that the truth? Do you think that that experience has given you kind of maybe a new eye for other clients or other traumas or other things that are going on, and really how to, what does that look like? What do you think that might have given you like some different clarity?
Absolutely, it has, because in training in school, unless you work with people of other abilities or you take additional courses on working with people of other abilities, you don't know really what to do. Like, you know how to do the diagnosis. You can say, yep, you check these boxes, because that's basically what a diagnosis is.
Yeah.
It's a book for us to check boxes to get paid by insurance. That's literally why there's a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Or consistency of treatment. But it's enabled me to be able to hold space better and adjust my protocols when I work with someone who may be on the spectrum, because there's so many different levels, as you know.
Yeah.
It's not just one or the other. It's not, if you're A, B, or C, it's a fluid, and it adjusts based on environment.
Yeah.
And the studies that I've done did not prepare me to work with someone who had different abilities. So I'm always questioning, is this okay? Is it too loud? Am I speaking too loudly? Am I too soft? I keep I do remote primarily now, but when I was in an office, I had a fuzzy blanket in case this couch was too scratchy, and just trying to make sure, because so many people get tactile issues, where if the couch is scratching the back of their legs, it's not going to be a productive session.
Yes.
Because they're going,
Yeah.
the whole time, and not focusing on a word you're saying. And
isn't that so interesting too, to think of our bodies and our minds and how closely related they are, and how obviously they're inside one another, but how it really affects our senses can override our ability to think and our ability to obtain information and process that information. And that's something that I think is newer for society to learn about.
Yes.
It's old news in my house, but it's for society. It's something so, in fact, I was late diagnosed at 45. I don't know if you knew that or not, but in that, kind of revisiting my childhood and my, some sensory issues that I had, and now I was able to put a name and an understanding to what they are. And not only that, but for any other adults that are listening and that might be going through this, there was a time where, kind of premenstrual, where I'm like, don't want to be touched, like no, especially light touch, like I can't stand it, pants, anything, like it drives me nuts. And so for the longest time, I've been with my husband for almost 20 years, and it was the longest battle to fight, that I wasn't like, cringed out by him, or it wasn't him. It wasn't like this personal attack or anything against anyone. And when we both had that understanding and knowledge and could like put a real thing to it, boy, I mean, we have a great relationship anyways, but it lessened that amount of expectation and stress and trauma that he had to deal with because of it. And, all of the things, I think it was so, getting the information is so important. And it's just like freedom. It
Yes.
allows you to, and I know so many people are afraid still of labels or things like that. But would you rather be labeled a drama queen? Would you rather be labeled a bad kid in class? Would you rather have your kid be labeled, naughty or all of these things, than going to really find out what the real root is and getting them support?
Exactly. And the way that I talk to my clients is, it's not a label. It's a diagnosis, which just means you have this group of symptoms. That's it. Just like if you have pneumonia, it's not a label. You have this group of symptoms. So within the spectrum disorder, you just have a group of symptoms. It is called this to get paid by the insurance company and for continuity of care. And so the good thing about that is you do kind of have a picture, so to speak, that you weren't just weird.
Mhm.
It's not just you.
Yeah.
There's other people that have this. And then it can help people who may not really understand how you work.
Mhm.
It gives them something that they can go research. So if you say, hey, I have ASD, or hey, I have ADHD, or hey, I have bipolar 2, whatever it is. And they're like, what's that? Well, here's what it is. Here's how I present, but other people present a little bit differently. But then they can go and they can do a little bit of research. And sometimes people will be more kind
Mm.
when they understand there's an actual reason you are the way they are, i.e., your diagnosis,
Yeah.
versus you're just a weirdo. You
Yeah,
know, there's a lot more grace in
absolutely.
that.
We have a quote that we made up kind of at the beginning of our podcast and books and everything, and that is a little bit of knowledge will turn fear into understanding.
Yes.
Isn't that so true? And with children, with adults, with any age group of or any person in general, any type of knowledge, whether it's visual, audio, whatever, you can give them some knowledge about what the situation is. Then we can move forward in a positive way with goals or ideas of how we can move forward rather than being stuck in this like confused state where we're questioning things or we have kind of a bitterness about it because we're not understanding. And that's hard for so many people. And I think
Yes.
and not to say that older generations can't, have wonderful thinking and everything, but I think that the pressures that they were conditioned to have are so heavy, it's more work, right, to
Mhm.
kind of let those things go. So it's not
Yes.
like they're by worse or better in any way. It's that there's just so much more work, that there's so much more unconditioning that needs to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And part of it is they just didn't know, right? They didn't have the research, they didn't have the knowledge, they didn't have the different modalities to start working with people. The
Yeah.
DSM-5 didn't even start until I think late 60s, early 70s, or even later. I can't remember exactly when. Um, so, people were just labeled, oh, those are the bad kids, the kids
Yeah.
that misbehave, they need to run out, they had too much sugar, all of those things, where the older generation does have a lot of things to relearn.
Yeah.
And some people are receptive, and some people are still that suck it up, buttercup.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is how it is. This is how it's been.
Yeah.
Just go with it. And I do see that a lot with grandparents and grandkids,
Yeah.
where, stop giving them sugar. I didn't give them sugar. I didn't give them sugar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and it's so interesting. And I really think that there are good things that still, it's like this fine line, right? Where yes, you can say, okay, suck it up. Everybody's got to do this. Everybody's got to go to the store to get groceries. Everybody's got to go to the bank to get the money. Everybody's got to, there's things we have to do in life. Absolutely. We don't have to go to restaurants. Our family, personally, we choose not to. We don't enjoy it. So why would we do something we didn't enjoy?
Right.
Because if the rest of society likes it, that's great. That's
Hmm.
fantastic. We do what we like here. But it took a long time for our family and to understand that, for our other family members to see that we weren't being rude or we weren't being trying to disconnect from them personally, as we were, that the environment wasn't right for us and our
Hmm.
what we needed. And I think that, like you said, it's like, okay, some kids, yes, have to go to school, they need to finish, they need to do all these things. Other cases, that can't be the case, that we have to find other ways to accommodate and to make everyone's journey dignified in the way that they
Yes,
need to have for us to show up for them. So that's it, it's a tricky fine line there. In
it
fact, it's
is.
funny because I hear like Temple Grandin's voice and her words, and just like, my mom sent me to the store and I had to do this and I had to do that, and she is who she is because of that. She is, this amazing pioneer. And these days, you're right. I think that there's so many ways that we put a bubble over our kids now. We don't make them go out to the store. We don't make them go out to the farm or whatever it is. And maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. I think it's an individual case by case
Yes.
basis. And I think that's the important part to look at, is that we can't have this one fits all size everything. It's
Absolutely.
so individualized, as I'm sure it's
Oh, yeah. And it also, I mean, certainly we want to build some resilience in our kids and in our friends and family as we learn these things about them. But you also need to make sure that you don't push them too far, right? So sometimes it's, going to the store, but kind of following them, making sure they're okay. Well, my nephew actually drives, and he has a job. The first department that he's in a grocery store, the first department they put him in, not a good fit. But he's learning to navigate because he does want to be on his own as an adult. He's learning to navigate how to share his other ability with other grownups, with the workplace. But he's very, very black and white. And if you don't do it by the book, he will call you out in a minute. He's like, I'm not supposed to lift above 50 pounds. This is 51 pounds. I'm not picking it up.
I love the literalness.
He's like, it's in the training video
it's
at
beautiful.
12 minutes and 84 seconds, whatever.
Exactly.
So, but we've taught him it's okay to advocate for himself.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. There is a balance. Now, the first few times we went driving, did one of us follow him at a little bit of a distance to make sure everything was okay? And he was comfortable, because if he did end up having an attack or getting overwhelmed or what have you, we'd pull over, call us. And, so we didn't let him go far from home. We'd make sure he was okay. So I think you're right. It is a balance of trying to make sure you know what their capacity is. You can stretch them a little, but we do that ourselves, right? We do that in anything that we do or learn or navigate. Potty training didn't start the first time.
Yeah.
Right? It's practice. It's starting a little bit at a time and practice. And I think it's the same thing with the people with other abilities in our life. It's a little bit of practice. Keep going for a little bit, practice some more. And if it's not a good fit, just change it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some of the your other. We won't fill it all with autism, but you do help so many other people. And let's talk a little bit about trauma, because I think being a trauma coach or therapist is so important, because there's so many levels and complexities of trauma. And I think that when people hear the word trauma, they immediately think of like the worst thing that happened. But sometimes It can be some small things that happen that create that create trauma too. And I don't think that looking at the word tells you exactly what it is. Like it's, again, this case by case, individualized basis. How do you help someone that comes to you and maybe says like, I think I might have, trauma from when I was a baby or as a child? Like, how do you get them to come to terms or to find that information?
So I work with several different protocols. A lot of it is just kind of talking. So we get to know each other. I make sure they understand it's a safe space. There's no judgment here. You can say anything you want. Nothing offends me. And so, sharing, there's a lot of vulnerability in that. And just sharing, something happened when I was a kid. I don't know what it is. I just have this feeling. Like I have this feeling. Okay, so tell me about your feeling. Where is it in your body? How often does it come up? And then some protocols that I personally use that I've also had used on me by another therapist that I found extremely effective. EMDR. Are you familiar with what that is?
Explain it. Well, yeah, and tell us what the acronym means too.
So
I have heard of it, but I just I'm right off the top of my head.
Sure. It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's basically when you go into REM sleep, in your nice deep sleep, when your eyes go back and forth. You probably saw that with your babies when they were sleeping. That's your brain and your body and your mind processing the day, processing what's happening in your life. So oftentimes if we don't get good REM sleep or something happens and we aren't able to process it during that sleep, it gets stuck.
Mm.
And so EMDR mimics that by
Mhm.
either you can follow fingers, like field MDR, which I do with some of my crisis people when we go out into the field. You can use your hands. People who are a little okay with tactile, you can, sorry, just pop the computer, but you can tap shoulders, tap knees, tap the top of hands. So it's bilateral stimulation from both the left and the right side of your body to engage both sides of your brain.
Mm.
And so what happens is we don't necessarily have the person, like, so if they can't figure out what it is, all right, so let's sit with that feeling, just focus on the feeling. And then we start the protocol. Sometimes it's a light bar that goes across. So we start the protocol, go through a few rounds of back and forth, and then, all right, what came up? And the first few times it's a little weird because you're like, why am I just moving my eyes like this? And you know, so what's going on? And then, as it kind of sits, all of a sudden this thought or this memory or this feeling will come up and you're like, I was 3 years old and the babysitter got mad and threw me in the crib and it kind of hurt, so it kind of comes out of nowhere and it can literally be anything,
Wow. That's
anything.
incredible. It's incredible. Our body's amazing like accountability for itself and being able to tell us, what's going on. And I'm a former massage therapist, so I
Okay.
completely deeply agree with like kinesiology and the
Mm-hmm.
acupressure, all of the things I love.
Yes.
And I was also just talking to somebody about reflex and or was yeah, and I can't remember what the term was, but when you're first born and you have the reflexes, and then sometimes you can, as an adult, I've just been learning about the reflexes that I don't have and I didn't learn, and that were the actual, I guess, check boxes that I got my diagnosis from, like, kind
Mm-hmm.
of in a way. So, how fascinating that our bodies can, like you said, not learn these techniques as a baby, as an infant, and then we can we can fix them over time. We can adjust these things over time. It's
Mm-hmm.
just our bodies are so fascinating that way.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and there's a book by Bessel van der Kolk. It's super dry. It's a dry read, but it's really good. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. Have you read that?
Mm-mm.
Did you do that massage?
What's that?
So it's somatics. So your body
Yeah.
will tell you stuff if you let it. I I've done a lot of work with first responders as well, and 99.8% of them have GI issues.
Mm.
Like I know why, because all the stuff they see and
Yes.
witness and deal with, that has to go somewhere. And the vagus nerve, there's actually more nerve endings in your gut than there is in your brain. And so there's more hormones and stuff like that going on. And, it can be something like you have kids. One of the first things that kids say when something's not right is, my tummy hurts.
Mm.
Doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if they had a bad burrito or if Mrs. Smith yelled at them about their
Yep.
reading assignment.
Yeah.
The feeling, like that guilt or shame, that feeling causes that knot in their stomach. And that's why their tummy hurts because the vagus nerve has started getting activated. And so you had mentioned, not all traumas are big. That's true. It could be something as simple as, Mrs. Smith yelled at me in front of the entire class
Yeah.
that my homework was not done and I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
Or, something happened and my boss yelled at me in front of my coworkers. And you don't have to be a kid.
Yeah. Sure.
Like belittled me about something in front of my coworkers. That's what's considered a small T trauma. Obviously, the big T traumas are like car accidents, getting shot,
Yeah.
the big stuff. But the little stuff, that's our day to day.
Yeah.
That's stuff where that impacts us on like multiple levels because they will let those pile up.
Yeah.
It's not like the big one where okay, I know my daddy passed away. I know I need to go deal with this. Oh, he yelled at me, but guess what? You're going to think about him yelling at you for the next 2 or 3 weeks, month, or the next time you go to talk to your boss, or the next time you go to talk to your teacher. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
you have that trepidation and kind of that gut feeling in your tummy. That's your body telling you,
Yeah.
you didn't work through this.
So amazing. And I used the same kind of not even analogy, but the same visual experience in my children's books about anxiety. That, do you know what anxiety is? It feels weird in your tummy. It makes it hard to breathe. Like you feel pressure. When they understand those physical responses, and then they can put a name to it and an idea of what it might be, then they can ask an adult for help. How much nicer is that for children, other than I have a stomach ache? Yeah, well, then mom's like, oh, what'd you eat? Do you need to go to the bathroom? Kind of idea, these things. And
Exactly.
really, you're right. It's about something that has emotionally happened to them, and they're holding on to that, and they
Mhm.
don't know how to process or let go or deal with it in any way. What's some maybe an advice or tip you could give to parents to two things? Maybe prepare their kids for how to deal with traumas. And then if they are a parent and they've yelled at their kid and they might have caused a little bit of that,
Mhm.
what do we do as parents to manage that? I don't think we can fix it, but how do we
Right.
manage?
So the answer is going to be a little bit similar in both. So one thing is making sure your kids know they can have feelings.
Mm-hmm.
They're allowed,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no
So,
right or wrong feeling because you can't change what's generated inside of you, right?
yeah.
So, you know, for example, how to deal with the teacher that yells at them in school. All right, where did you feel that? Tell me, instead of just shutting down, talk to me. Come home, talk to me. You can also have a conversation with the teacher with the child present, if that's okay with your child. Mrs. Smith, Johnny felt upset and sad that you yelled at him in front of his peers. We don't believe that was called for. Next time, if you have something to say, please take him aside, or you can let me know. We'll have a conference.
Yeah.
So actually advocating for the child and calling out the behavior that's unwarranted. Now, if they are getting ready to run into traffic, a little bit of a different story, right? You
Yeah.
want to stop. But if it's you didn't get your homework, this is the third time you didn't turn in your homework, the whole class doesn't need to know that.
Yeah.
So advocating for your child, and as your child gets older, teaching them to advocate for themselves. So don't go up in front of everyone because she did that to you. You don't need to do that to her. Mrs. Smith, I don't appreciate you calling out my mistakes in front of the entire classroom. Next time, please take me into a private space. And so giving your child, empowering your child to have that conversation and even practicing it at home.
Yeah.
So letting them know that it is okay to speak up. It's okay to acknowledge your feelings and have your feelings. And this I see a little bit more with boys than girls, quite
Mhm.
honestly, because you're a girl. We're a little more emotional. We're
We
a little
feel
more,
it. We feel it.
yep. And we're
Everybody
usually
else
like,
gets to see it.
exactly. But for both genders. And then as you you're going to make mistakes with your kid. You just are,
There's no perfect parenting. I don't even
right.
think there's good parenting. I think it's just parenting. I
Yeah.
legit think yes, there's bad parenting. I'm not gonna say that.
Yeah.
But really, I don't think there's even like a good. I don't think that can be even a thing because I think we all try our best with all, I mean, those of us that have the best intentions to do the best parenting ever, it
Mhm.
still goes wrong. Things still go
Yes.
wrong all
Oh
the
yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
I'm on my third, and I'm still like, oh my gosh, how is this so hard? You'd think I would have known and been like really good at this by now, so many years into it. But it's not the truth.
No.
Everybody is different. They each have their own personalities, they have their own interests.
Yes.
And, so I just wrote this yesterday. My husband has this beautiful analogy for parents and children, and that's that we are the bow and they are the arrow. And it doesn't matter how beautifully crafted or how much time we put into it. When we release the arrow into the world, and number one, the bow doesn't matter anymore. Then,
Yep.
in a sense, the arrow goes its own way, but anything can change the trajectory of that arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Wind, rain, a rock, something in the way, an animal Anything can change
Yes.
that. And we cannot control that. We have to just pick up the pieces from where they
Yes.
fall and move and go forward. But I love that because it gives you that sense that I can do my best. I can do all I have. At the end of the day, this is this person's experience and their journey and their life um to live, and I am just beside that person,
Hmm.
with them, not for them, or
Right.
I can't control that person or that thing. And that's really hard for parents, isn't it? To not control.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a lot. It's hard for them to also sometimes admit mistakes. So
Yeah.
that's kind of going back to the second part of your question earlier. Admit to your child that you've made a mistake. Apologize. They're little humans. They're little humans. They deserve an apology if you are not right. And then tell me how you're feeling about what I said. Suck it up. Suck it up. Have the hard conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry my behavior caused those feelings. I will work on not doing that again. And then give your child permission to call you out.
Yeah.
Mommy, you hurt my feelings. Those were unkind words. You did not need to yell at me. You're right. I'm sorry. I was frustrated because you would not put your shoes on by the 54th time I asked you to start the car. You know, like, because we're all human, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what, little Johnny, I'm sorry I yelled at you. I was frustrated. The reason I was frustrated, you not putting your shoes on caused a delay in things for the day. So please put your shoes on timely. Make it a conversation, even when they're little. Start the nuggets and seeds of those conversations so that your kid will come to you when there's a
Yeah.
problem. They will come to you when they have big feelings. And even if you create the big feelings, it's okay to have these big feelings, and it's okay to be mad at me.
Yeah.
It's okay to be mad at me.
Mm.
I love you. You love me. And sometimes we're going to be mad at each other. Let's acknowledge that we're mad. Let's talk about why we're mad. And then let's make it better.
Yeah.
I don't think enough parents acknowledge their child's feelings instead of, if you would have gotten in the car, you wouldn't have made me mad.
Yeah.
Well, you getting late in the car caused me to be late for work, caused this, So as they get older and explaining those things, I think can make a better relationship, because as we get older, we understand those things.
Yeah.
If I'm not late to work, then you're not late to soccer practice,
Yeah.
and things like that. And then when you do give a consequence, tell them why. Go to your room. Why? Because I said so. No. Why are you really sending them to their room?
Yeah.
Tell them. And that, as far as what I've seen with the people that I've worked with, can create a stronger bond, but it also gives a reason for the discipline. Because I said so is not a good reason for anything.
No.
You know?
Yeah, that's it's so good to say too, because I think that we as parents or adults look at children sometimes and just scoff, if you will, and they don't know, they haven't this, they haven't that, but they do deserve respect, dignity, all of those things as human beings. And I think that definitely raising a stepchild and trying to do my best with that situation, having my own two 10 years later, and having so much experience and having so much understanding of that, things are different now. I parent so much differently, and this third time around I really recognize, like, um I don't want my kid to be sad in the morning and leave for school crying or upset. I never, ever, ever want that. I'll watch everything I say in the morning to be gentle and just make it so that they don't start their day off in a bad way. I'm not, and maybe that's not great for resilience. I don't know. But at the same time, I think and maybe that was one of my traumas as a kid, was showing up to somewhere completely disheveled and then having to force myself to go into a place with these unresolved feelings and upsettedness, and it closes you off to be able
Yes.
to have a good day. And I recognized that. And I didn't want her to ever have to do this. I'm really careful about those things. And, it
Hmm.
might seem a little bit like I'm babying her a little on the way, but I also see the importance of just allowing her to have her space and be herself because she's a lot different from me. And I think that that's a hard thing for parents too, is when their kids are so different from them. And they're like, how? I'm your parent. How could you not be like this? And like, oh, she's like her dad. Oh, I see. Okay. She's the
Hmm.
exact opposite. But it's so interesting. But I think that giving patience and understanding to that has helped out so much with our relationship this time around,
Hmm.
in that she knows that I truly love and care for her. And even in the times where I have to discipline her, luckily we make some contracts so that we can also go back, and she's old enough as sixth grade to
Hmm.
understand a written contract and
Right.
understand the importance of that. And then it's her responsibility to keep her word, not our
Hmm.
responsibility to keep track of her. And because I think that there's like this, um, I just read somewhere yesterday, like, don't be your kid's alarm clock every single day. You need, and I am, so I need to stop doing that. I need to start getting her to start doing some of these things on her own and being more accountable. There I am admitting my mistakes, right? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with admitting my mistakes for sure, because I'm going to learn from them. I want to learn from
Yes.
them. I want to be better. I want to have a great relationship with her someday. I don't have a relationship with the oldest one. We don't have a relationship. And I tried my hardest. I did my best. I gave her all the love I possibly could offer for a child that I didn't know how else to love.
Hmm.
But that it still comes down to that individual's journey and that
Yes.
individual's genetics, which aren't my own as well. And so it all factors into what you can and really can't be responsible for yourself as you
Absolutely.
grow up. So
And
true.
I think you setting the tone for your child to learn is amazing. That's
Oh,
really good work
thank you.
because if you holler at your kid as they're getting out of the car, they're going to be focusing on that, not on their studies, not on learning. And there's always time for conversation after work or after school or both. So, you know, you know what? That was not an appropriate behavior. We're going to discuss that after school. I want you to go in. I want you to have a good day. So you can always back burner it
Yeah.
and bring it up later. But I think that's setting children up for success to start their day is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I love that. I'm glad. Thank you for saying so, because another thing I did with her that was different is that I saw in my own self as a woman and a girl, and my own stepdaughter and her problems with her own biological mom, was that self-love, was
Mhm.
that missing piece of self-love. And the first thing I did with my little girl, when as early as I could, was tell her, it doesn't matter if grandma or grandpa or anybody says, "Oh, do you love me the most?" Da, 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 whatever. You are number one. You love yourself first. You love yourself the most. Done. Bottom line.
Mhm.
As she's gotten older, people have said, "Well, isn't that kind of selfish? Are you creating like this selfishness?" It's okay to be a little bit selfish, if as long as you're not hurting others, of course, and causing harm to others. At the same time, wow, the resilience, the beauty, the like confidence that she walks with, the understanding that she loves herself at 11 years old. I like, not, my job's not done, but heck, I'm like, ooh, this is a good thing that this isn't like,
Yes.
this person has this inner strength about them that I hope can just like really help them, in the future, not to have to deal with this kind of stuff that I've had to
Yeah.
reassess my security about myself and reassess my self-love and things like that,
Hmm.
due to um other people. I'm an only child of divorced parents that moved from different states. I mean, the amounts of traumas are it's forever talk about that. But yeah, I think that creating that understanding for her has been so important for me.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think if enough of us did that with our children, what a powerhouse of a world we'd have.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes hurt people hurt people. And I'm not saying she's never going to get hurt. There is no shortage of pain in this world. But empowering someone now to know that they are seen, valued, heard, and loved helps them learn how to do that with other people. And if more of us did that, number one, I wouldn't have a job, but you know, the world would be a very different place. You know,
Yeah.
if everyone felt like they were seen, valued, heard, and loved. And that's one of the things that is insanely important to me. That's part of my mission is I want people to feel seen, valued, heard, and loved, and to know that their voice matters, whether it's on stage, in their own lives, with their job, and that, you know, young people also have a voice. They're able to, when they can learn how to communicate with their parents, with their bosses, and things where it's not just because I said so.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It has
yeah.
meaning behind it. It has depth and gives so much more to it, doesn't it? I completely agree. Oh, that's so fantastic. What would a person do if they wanted to start services with you? What does that look like? What's that process?
So we set up a 15-minute or so call just to make sure we're a good fit, because I fully believe that you need to work with the person that you're a good fit with, not just who the insurance company says you should work with.
Yeah.
So, you know, we chat for a little bit, make sure it's a good fit. And if I'm not a good fit, then I have referrals. So I personally waived my license so I can work with anyone anywhere. That was very intentional. A
Wow.
lot of people are like, why? I'm like, well, I'm in Virginia. It's not only people in Virginia that could use my help. So,
Absolutely.
so I very intentionally waived my license. I still have the training, the degrees, the pedigree, all that kind of stuff. But I do work with anyone, anywhere. So we talk. If it's a good fit, we go ahead and set up a session. My sessions normally run between an hour and 90 minutes. Somewhere in there, I give a little buffer because I'm not going to be like, oh, it's 2:00. It's time to go.
Yeah.
And so I do things a little bit differently. So once we're able to make sure it's a good fit, then we just get on the books. You get on the, you get in my schedule and we work until you're ready to move forward. I don't believe in therapy forever. I don't think you should be in counseling forever. Now, different reasons, yes, all kinds of things come
Yeah.
up. But working through something, my goal is to get you where you're feeling better, you feel empowered, you're able to work through whatever that issue was, take it from the big folder up here where it's in your thoughts every day and stick it in the folder back here where it belongs. You can access it and put it back. It becomes a memory instead of a thought that just overtakes.
An active thought.
Mm-hmm.
That's so important. What age groups do you work with?
I primarily work with adults currently just because it's a little easier to navigate with the Zoom because I do all of my appointments online. And then I have some amazing referrals for folks that work with little ones. And then I do some family stuff, not a lot, just because there's a lot of custody stuff with some people, and you don't want to have sessions without consent and all that kind of things.
Yeah.
But that's who I normally work with. And then if I don't know, if I can't work with you, I do know someone that can. So
I love that.
I'm happy to resource to the best fit. That's how it should
Referrals
be.
are the best, aren't they? It's always great to have that network of who you can refer people to. Now you're part of the SJ network, Miss Courtney.
Thank you.
We just started a nonprofit too called in fact, I will tell you the name. This will be the first time anyone's hearing it. SJ Child's Global Network.
I love it.
Yeah. So we're hoping to, be able to bring all of these amazing services to all of the people who need them. That's the important part, is bridging that, making that bridge that people can find these things that they need and getting it from people that they trust, which I hope is me, and knowing that they can, come to me and find the best people to work with them. So thank you so much for your time today. It was so great to chat with you and get to know you better. And it's been a really wonderful conversation.
Yes, I very much enjoyed it, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. And I hope we can keep in touch and chat
Yes,
some more in the future. Set up a
absolutely.
coffee chat, maybe. In fact, I'll book some time,
Perfect.
Talk about that. No, that's funny. Yeah, it was so nice. Before we go, tell us where we can go to find you and support you.
My website's going to be the easiest place to find me, and it's traumatreehouse.com. So I do interject a little fun. I know that sounds
Mhm.
weird being a trauma person.
It's great.
But when you think of Treehouse, it's a place that you come and tell your stories and it's safe. So
Okay,
I have the traumatreehouse.com, and
great.
there's also some resources on there as well. So if there's some stuff that you think you might need, there's an entire resource page. And if you just have questions, my email's on there. You can just shoot me a quick email if you have any. Hey, I heard you on the SJ Child Show. I have a question about this. Sure. Or do you know a person in this area? Sure. Happy to help. So
Wonderful.
glad to help with that.
Love that. Thank you so, so much. This has
Thank
just been
you.
a wonderful hour. I mean, time has just flown. I can't believe how much time has flown by. I feel like I have so much more to talk about too. That's okay. We'll continue next time. Exactly.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you so, so much. And we'll definitely be in touch.
All right. Thank you.